Hello, welcome to Academic Abby. My name is Abby, and today I will be teaching you how to add and subtract complex numbers, including radicals. So here's one equation we have here. Negative 3 rad 12 minus rad 24 minus rad 12. So some things that we need to know before we can actually add and subtract these complex numbers is that you can only add and subtract complex numbers that have the same number under their radical. So we'll get more into that in a minute, but for instance, rad 12 and rad 12, they could be added and subtracted because they have the same radical. And then another thing is you can only add and subtract numbers that either are all real or they're all imaginary. So here we can we can operate with this equation because everything is a real number. But if there was an I somewhere in here, we would not be able to solve this because it would be both real and imaginary. So before we actually begin to add and subtract, we are going to simplify each part of this equation into its simplest form. And in order to do that, let's recall how to simplify radicals. We take out the perfect square in each. So let's simplify this first part, negative 3 rad 12. So negative 3, and then rad 12, we pull out the perfect square of 4, which when you multiply 4 and 3, you get rad 12. So, and then the square root of 4 is 2, so negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. And then we just are left with rad 3. So that's that first part there. And now let's move on to simplifying this negative rad 24. So if you'll recall, this is really like a 1. It's an invisible 1. So we have negative 1 rad 24. And perfect square of 24 is again 4. And the rad that multiplies with rad 4 to get 24 is rad 6. So then the square root of 4 is again 2. So then we have 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. And then we're left with rad 6 because rad 6 can't be simplified further. And then we do the same procedure with negative rad 12. Again, we have a negative 1 rad 12 really. And then 4 is a perfect square of 12, and the rad that multiplies with 4 would be rad 3, and then the square root of 4 is 2. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2 rad 3. So now we have all these simplified terms here, right? We have the negative 6 rad 3, the negative 2 rad 6, and the negative 2 rad 3. So what do we do with these now? Well, now we can actually add and subtract them. So let's recall we can only subtract numbers that have the same number under the rad. And if we look, negative 2 rad 6 is not going to work, but negative 6 rad 3 and negative 2 rad 3 both have 3 under the rad, so they can be added and subtracted. So what we need to do is we just add or subtract the number outside of the rad and leave the rad the same. So negative 6 minus 2 would be negative 8, and then the rad was rad 3, so we just put rad 3 there. We do not add the 3, like rad 3 plus rad 3 equals rad 6. That's not what you do. You just leave rad 3 the same and just operate on the outside number. And then this negative 2 rad 6 cannot be added with it because 3 and 6 are not the same, so we're just gonna throw it in there on its own, negative 2 rad 6. So then in the simplest form of this equation, we're left with negative 8 rad 3 minus 2 rad 6, and that is how you solve or add and subtract rad numbers, or rad and subtract complex numbers with rads.